represents flowers, springtime, the approach of summer, and of course, obviously I don't worry about it, but getting into bikini season. But for people like me, May is a month of awareness. Awareness for a condition that many people may have not ever even heard of. Because unfortunately there's not awareness. See, I have what is commonly called multiple chemical sensitivity. MCS for short. What is multiple chemical sensitivity? Well, it's simply put exactly the way it says. I'm sensitive to many different types of chemicals. For me, they are mainly man-made. Others are also sensitive to natural compounds found in our environment. Luckily, I'm lucky that I'm not one that also reacts harshly to the natural irritants in our environment like pollen or mold or even certain foods, but others with MCS can become very intolerant. It is important that people understand that this condition is not just a figment of people's imagination, which is what many who have multiple chemical sensitivity come across. At first, they may not even realize why they feel sick, why they're hurting, why they're reacting to various items in their environment, because they've always had the same lotions, the same shampoos, the same foods, and then one day someone may decide to say, got this great smelling lotion, you want to try some? Sure, why not? I love the scent. So you'll spread it on, and then you start realizing throat's getting a little itchy, a little scratchy on the inside. It's kind of hard to breathe. Or you start getting a headache. You get nauseated, and you can't figure out why you feel sick. Some people start feeling sick all the time, never realizing why they just cannot shake the flu. But it's not the flu. With me, I've always been someone who was a bit sensitive. Makeup would break me out if I wore it too often. I was someone who could detect odors long before someone else could, whether it be good or bad. Not exactly a great superpower to have, is it? But I was able to live my daily life. I was one who absolutely adored having fabric softener put in my dryer. I'd even use an extra dryer sheet or two because I just loved the scent so much. And I also would get excited whenever I was down to my last little drop of shampoo, because that meant I could go and explore a different smelling shampoo. I mean, just because someone has sensitivities doesn't mean that they don't like scents. However, as time progressed, scents didn't like me, apparently. And it all can be traced back for me to one very traumatic day. See, I once worked as a security officer for a local hospital. One of those big, huge hospitals that have hospital franchises all over the place. And in order to make it where the staff was safer and that our officers had more equipment on hand to handle unsafe behaviors of staff, visitors, patients, one of the steps that was taken was to encourage all of us who were on the security team to undergo pepper foam training. A lot like pepper spray, but it's like you're getting sprayed with silly string and it just sticks on your face. It doesn't just kind of wipe off very well. And the reason that pepper foam's used in hospital settings is so it doesn't go up in the air handlers and you having to spray someone in room 4 and someone in room 6 ends up getting sprayed as well because of the air being circulated throughout the hospital. For many people, it was just a irritation, an inconvenience for that day. But for me, it was the beginning of a very long process of losing myself and everything that I had come to appreciate in life, everything that made me proud of being me at the time. When we were sprayed, we would have to do the counting, the 1/100. MCS also causes my brain to freeze up on me sometimes, so please bear with me. But by the time I got to basically the number 3 in the countdown, I stopped being able to speak and I stopped being able to breathe. The instructors and my co-workers who were undergoing the training that day thought that I was just panicking because it is very traumatic whenever you're first sprayed. And they knew that in order to continue being employed as a security officer, I would need to go through the training. So even though I could not speak, breathe, see, my co-workers did what they felt was best and they helped me through the obstacle course that we had to go through after being sprayed, telling me to punch here, kick there, so on. And once I got under the water to rinse out, I was finally able to start breathing again, but the moment I would come out from the water, my throat would close up again. I was the only person there that reacted the way I did. And I'm the only one that the instructor asked, "You're not driving home today, are you?" No, I knew better. My mother-in-law was coming to pick me up. When she finally got there and we started heading towards our home, which is about a 30-mile drive from where I was at for the training, she looked at me and said, "You're not breathing right. I'm taking you to the hospital." And I checked in and I was given some breathing treatments and basically told that I just had a sore throat. And that's exactly what went into my file. Not that I was in the hospital for a chemical exposure, which ended up causing problems for me later on, but that's not part of today's story. I lost my voice for 3 weeks. I could not say my name for 3 weeks because of the irritation and the lingering side effects that I had to the pepper foam. Over the next several months, my breathing continued to be labored, And on Christmas Eve of 2015, I ended up in the hospital with pneumonia. It was linked back to the fact that my lungs had yet to recover from the pepper foam training from a few months prior. Once the pneumonia cleared up, I slowly began to detect more and more chemicals in my environment that other people couldn't. At first, I just thought that the people around me were being complete jerks, wearing way too much Axe body spray or applying way too much lotions or using just about anything and everything once I started to complain, just to, again, be complete jerks. Which I did work with some jerks. I worked with some great people too, but there's jerks everywhere. Throughout the next year, I began to have more and more problems with not being able to handle everyday items. Items like my husband's favorite soap that he would use in the shower, cleaning fluids that are used to do basic household cleaning, I would have to vacate my home every time he would break down to clean because I just couldn't do it. I could not tolerate those chemicals, and no matter what products I tried, it seemed to bother me, whether it be from not being able to breathe, giving me headaches, which I do tend to have migraines, and the MCS has made it worse because one of my major migraine triggers now are chemical exposures. So in some videos you will be seeing me wearing these. I wear sunglasses 24/7, especially whenever I was working because fluorescent lighting was not very migraine friendly. When you have sensitivities that no one really understands, it can put strains on your relationships. And among them, there was a strain between my husband and myself when I would not be able to handle certain things that seemed so ridiculous. And I would find them ridiculous if it wasn't happening to me. It even got to the point where I would get sick every time he would cook something in the microwave that was a frozen processed meat. He loves eating hamburgers. So he would buy the frozen hamburger patties and he would microwave them for his meals. And at first even I thought it was just the smells. The smells of chemicals or foods that was making me sick. I didn't understand at first the chemical compounds that are put into many foods and everyday products that we can react to without even consciously being able to notice them. Within a year after my training, I was having more and more difficulty being able to do my job as a security officer in a hospital, because everybody knows the hospitals have tons of cleaning products because it's supposed to be a sterile environment. One of the products that I would react to were the cleaning wipes that they use to wipe down beds and wheelchairs, countertops, basically the all-purpose wipes. They have no odor, absolutely none. And before my exposure, I would help the staff clean rooms whenever I had nothing else to do. I, we were a small hospital, so one that was so small that everybody literally knew everyone else on shift. You'd walk in the door and be like, all right, who's working today? Okay. So with being a small crew, everybody just pitched in, whether it was your job or not, especially during busy times. I had to stop doing what I'd done for years because I started getting very nauseated every time I'd be around the cleaning wipes. Again, there's no odor. Try telling someone that the scent of something that doesn't have a scent is bothering you. And again, at that time, I wasn't fully aware that it's not the scent. There's tons of things that are in the air that have no scent. It was the off-gassing of the chemicals that I was reacting to. And whenever people get used to you doing certain things, whenever you stop, there can be a little bit of bitterness, excuse me. And that caused some friction in my job. And I started looking for alternatives. Like many people, I tried using essential oils to try to help me get through my day. Sometimes they worked and sometimes they didn't. But I was desperate. And someone even gave me a locket to put the essential oil in. And whenever someone would come in with perfume, I would bring the locket up to my face to block the chemicals with something that I felt at the time was safer. Essential oils are not safe for everyone. Some of them are not safe for me any longer. But at the time, they were helping. But I did tell you that I work with some jerks, right? So, there was complaints. And I was like, well, the reason I'm using these is because I can't handle the scents of everybody else, my coworkers especially, and I was having to not be around certain individuals because I was reacting to their laundry detergents, their lotions, their hair products. That began my process of having my work, trying to at least attempt to make it look like that they were going to accommodate my disability. But that was only after I had to point out that I was actually having immune responses to certain items in my environment. That I was having my lymph nodes to swell up. I would have mild fevers at times whenever my body was fighting off, trying to avoid reacting to everything that my body was just being bombarded with. It even got to the point where I was carrying vomit bags in my back pocket every day because I was getting sick at least 4 times during a shift. Before I ended up leaving my job, I was even having difficulty driving to work. The exhaust of cars on my way to work was causing me to get sick. I can take you down that route right now, and I can point out this is where I would pull over every day on my way to work to throw up. This is another place where I had to pull over. It got so bad where I was actually taking an extra uniform with me to work because I knew I would end up soiling my uniform by getting sick each night. Sometimes I wouldn't even get to work before my uniform would be soiled. And looking professional was one of the big things that was pushed by the hospital, especially for security. When I ended up having to leave my job, it's still, how can I say this? It still hadn't sunk in yet that this was going to be for the long haul. I tried to call every doctor I could possibly think of, every type of doctor, to ask them, how can I have this treated? Is there any cure? Is there a pill that can block my reactions? But there's not. The only treatment for MCS is avoidance. And that is the hardest thing to do, because reacting to the very air you breathe, to things that you can't see, and things that you can't control, it takes a toll on you. Now, in my home, I've tried to make it as safe as I can, with the understanding from both my husband and my son. We have changed products that we use to plant-based laundry detergents, plant-based soaps, mineral-based deodorants. I clean my shower with a paste of Epsom salts to clean the grout. For the rest of the tile, I will sprinkle it with baking soda and spray it down with vinegar to make it react. And once it's all bubbly and you can tell that the foam's working in on whatever dirt and ground is in there, then you'll wipe it down and rinse it off. I no longer have the luxury of using the products that I have used my entire life. And unfortunately, my existence means that my husband and son can't either. When my son comes home from school, I can't be around him until he changes his clothes. Many times he even has to take a shower before I can approach him, because of the chemicals that are in the air at his school leach onto him. And while he was exposed, if I want to give my son a hug before he changes his clothes, I could very well react to his clothing. This is the life of nearly everyone who has MCS. Now, each person with this condition has different tolerance levels. As I said, some can still tolerate essential oils, some cannot. Some can tolerate being around chemicals for a short amount of time before outwardly reacting. Others cannot. And just because someone may be in your presence and trying to put on a smile, it doesn't mean that they're not reacting, because there is a huge stigma associated with this. Constantly being told that it's all in your head. It can't be that bad. Well, no one else has a problem with my perfume. Or I only wore a little bit of lotion. I knew you were coming, so I made sure that I only used a little bit of the cleaning spray in the bathroom. Or I took out my air freshener plug-in an hour before you came, so it should be safe. No. it's difficult to try to explain to people, especially those that you don't want to inconvenience yourself by telling them, I'm sorry, but you can't come to see me because I get sick every time you do. That goes over well with friendships and family. I personally wear a mask whenever I'm in public. I started doing so a couple of months after I left work in 2017. I'd sent my son into a grocery store just to go and buy himself a pizza for supper. I was not feeling that great, so just going to get him a pizza and he was old enough he could pop it in the oven himself. I was going to end up just coming home crashing. So I sat out in the car and I sent him in with a $5 bill because the little frozen pizza wasn't that much. He came back out, and I only lived 2 miles from the grocery store. Before I got halfway home, I had to pull over because I could not breathe. I literally could not breathe. I had to get out of the car to get away from my son because enough of the products that were in the air in the grocery store had leached onto him that I could not be in the car with him without without being able to breathe. Fortunately, I did have a mask in the car, and I put it on so I can continue driving. After that point, I realized that vanity, which you can really tell I'm a very vain person. No, I've never really been big on fashion or anything like that, so it's a good thing because I would not be able to subject myself to the chemicals that are in perfumes and makeups and hairstyling products with this condition. But the vanity comes in with the fact that you want to be able to walk into a grocery store and not have people stare at you. Wintertime's easier. People just assume you're afraid of the flu. Springtime here in North Carolina, they just figure that you have allergies and you're trying to avoid inhaling pollen. But those stories don't always work. And you are no longer able to go under the radar and just slip into a store and slip out being unnoticed. Going to church becomes an ordeal no matter how many times you try to push through. It becomes harder each time. Not because you don't love going and not because you don't love the people, but let's face it, when women go to church, they take a shower in their perfume before they go. Currently, my husband and I sit up in the balcony by ourselves when we go to church. A bit antisocial, yes, but I can't be close to people. Even if you came up and just waved to me instead of actually trying to give me a hug, which, you know, that's just common in churches where people want to do a handshake or a hug or pat you on the back. But anything that you have on your person then can end up coming home with me. And then I could come home and react to it hours after I was exposed to it. Some of the reactions that I personally have, I've mentioned not being able to breathe. I've mentioned throwing up. I have migraines, exhaustion, exposure to common everyday chemicals actually gives me pain And I did not actually understand that until I started wearing my mask and realizing that whenever I went to church wearing my mask, instead of just being up in the balcony by myself, I was in less pain. Because it had gotten to the point where I was in so much pain whenever I'd go to church that I would lay down on the floor up in the balcony because I could not sit in the pew. I was in that much pain. But wearing a mask has reduced my pain levels. I still have chronic pain because no matter how hard you try to avoid chemicals, even if I'm not breathing it in, it can still be leached into my skin. Because let's face it, your skin is your largest organ of your entire body. So not breathing it in actually just delays the reaction. Doesn't always stop them. And another reaction that I have, as I said that earlier, it can cause mental confusion. I have been exposed to cigarette smoke, and within moments I basically looked like I was having a stroke. My speech would be slurred, my balance was off, I was not able to get my thoughts together. The balance issues have also come by themselves. I have broken my ankle twice in the last year just by walking outside my home and having the fragrance of fabric softener in the air from a neighbor drying their clothes. I'd be hit by that fragrance, lose my balance, and I'm on the ground. Now, I've fallen many times, but like I said, I've broken my ankle twice since September, and this is May 1st. I'm actually just now getting over a break. So even walking outside my front door is not safe. I do go outside to take my dog out, and I try to work his walks around whenever I know that most of the neighbors aren't home. This is a condition that has affected my entire life and the lives of everyone around me. I will be trying to do more videos to isolate certain parts of life that multiple chemical sensitivity has affected my life and those around me, and to try to bring awareness to this condition throughout this month. I'm going to try to do one every day, but I cannot guarantee that because some days I literally cannot get out of bed. I was actually having a bit of a time earlier today because I had to spend a little time recovering. 3 separate days in a row I've had some errands that I've had to run, which meant that I was out of the house, church, and doctor's appointments. And so it can be a little strenuous, but I will try to do my best. If there are any questions that people may have, I will do my best to try to answer them. Again, not everyone reacts the same way. It's a lot like how people refer to with autism. If you've met one person with autism, you've only met one person with autism, because everyone's different. MCS is the same. There are many commonalities, but we're all very unique. So if you know someone who has MCS, the expert on their condition is them. And if they tell you they cannot handle something, take them at their word for it. Because this is one condition that even the doctors don't understand. So when those of us who are suffering from it try to reach out, there's very little answers for us, so we're just sort of finding our own path. So until the next video, I encourage everyone to just be aware of what may be around you, because you never know when that one exposure might be the last time that you're okay with it. Most people with this condition never thought that they would have to give up their favorite soap or their favorite laundry detergent, their favorite food. What would you do if tomorrow your entire life turned upside down and you had to figure out a way to get through this world safely when no one else understands? So, again, my name is Dawn, and I am one face of multiple chemical sensitivity. One face of many.